Hello and welcome to part 1 of how to make your own Spartan helmet out of EVA foam. In this video I'm going to show you step by step how I made this Spartan Corinthian style helmet. I paid special attention to detail to get this helmet to look as realistic as possible. Here are a few close-up photos to show you some of that detail. If you would like to make a Spartan helmet just like this one, I've included a link in the description below where you can buy a detailed pattern from my Etsy shop. After printing out the PDF files, I start by cutting out all my pattern pieces. Because some of the pattern pieces are larger than an 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper, they have to be taped together like it is indicated on the pattern, like this dome piece here. Now I'm tracing out the left dome sections number 1 and 2 on some 7mm foam. And because it is indicated as the left side, that means I have to flip the pattern over, trace and cut out the right side as well. It's very important to remember to transfer all the information from the pattern to the foam. This will save you a lot of time later on during the assembly. Keep your utility knife sharp while cutting EVA foam. The cleaner the cut, the better your glue joint will be. I use a sharpening stone to keep mine sharp at all times. When working with EVA foam, it's a good idea to form your foam closer to the shape it'll be in when it's assembled. I'm using a heat gun to heat up the area that I need to shape. Make sure to heat up both sides of the foam. You don't want to burn or scorch your foam, so go easy with it. After the foam is well heated, you can start to shape it with your hands or over a sphere like I'm doing here. Hold the foam in place until it starts to cool. Now it should stay in that shape indefinitely, and you should have a much easier time during assembly. Now I'm applying glue to the dart sections of the dome. I like to use a scrap piece of foam to spread the glue out evenly. Remember to apply glue to both sides of the seam and always wait till it's dry to the touch before trying to make contact. I use 2 coats of contact cement. The first coat acts as a sealer and the second coat seems to make a much better contact. After the glue is dry to the touch, I can start to assemble one half of the dome. I'm keeping my seam as smooth as possible and I'm following the registration marks as I go. You might have noticed that I'm working with this dome section inside out. It just seems easier to me to make sure that the outside surface stays flush while I'm working with it this way. After it's assembled, it can be easily inverted back to its proper position. Now that both sides of the dome are assembled, it's time to join the halves together to form the complete dome section of the helmet. I have included a head measurement chart with the pattern, so the size of the helmet can be adjusted to fit any size head, just by rescaling it with your printer's settings. After cutting out piece number 5, the back flap section, I can glue it to the back of the dome, keeping sure to line up the center line that was transferred from the pattern to the foam. Now I'm joining pattern pieces 3 and 4 together, so I can trace and cut them as one piece of foam. Here I am using a more pointed knife. It seems to work better for cutting out sections like the eye holes in the faceplate number 3. Now it's time to assemble the two halves of the faceplate. I'm starting off by gluing the nose section together. Be sure to keep this seam as smooth as possible because it is very visible, being right in front of the helmet. Now flip it over and glue the back neck guard area together. I'm using a piece of paper so I can work on a small section at a time, without the upper part of the seam sticking together before I want it to. Time to glue the assembled face guard to the dome. I'll start by lining up the seam on the front of the dome with the seam on the nose guard area. Make sure to only apply glue just as far as the edge of the back flap and tuck the neck guard inside the dome for now. I'm marking the foam with a pen so I know where to apply the glue. Open up the pocket inside and apply glue to both the neck guard and the back flap area. After the glue is dry to the touch, you can close up the pocket. Now the neck guard needs a nice curl, so I'll heat it up and shape it until I get the form I'm looking for. Now it's time to work on the headband. Make a duplicate of the pattern number 8 and tape them together where it's indicated. Trace it onto the foam and be sure to transfer the center line mark and cut the headband section out. Now I'm cutting out some 1/4 inch strips out of some 7mm foam that I'll be using to trim some sections on the helmet. After the strips are cut, I'll take some time and sand them into a half circle shape for a more appealing look. I should mention at this point that you can buy these half circle strips pre-made online at many places that sell craft foam. Applying these strips is easier if you use your finger to guide you along the edge of the foam as you go. Try to pre-cut angles on the end of each strip before gluing them into place for a seamless joint. Now let's get ready to place the headband on the helmet. Use the seam between the face guard and the dome as a reference mark to put the headband in place. Center it with the center line indication from the pattern and the center seam on the dome. While holding it in place, use a pen to trace the outline of the headband to show where the glue should go. Apply the contact cement and glue it firmly in place onto the helmet. Now I'm gluing the remaining trim to the face guard. Again, it is easier to glue these in place if you use your fingers to guide you along the edge of the foam as you go. Whenever you intersect two of these strips together, cut them at a matching angle for a good tight seam. Cut the eye trims off at a point to create a nice tear duct shape. I'm taping patterns 6 and 7 together here, so I can cut the left and right sides out for the crest. Now it's time to glue the two halves of the crest together. I should mention at this point that if you have some 14mm foam both sides smooth, you could use it instead of using the two halves of the 7mm foam. After joining the two halves of the crest together, make sure to sand all edges until they are uniform and smooth. Now I'm using the Crest detail pattern page as a reference to cut out and glue these 2mm foam pieces to the crest. I'll be showing you another option to make the sunray design on the crest in the second part of this tutorial. Now I'm gluing some 2mm foam around the crest except where the crest joins the helmet. The width of these strips is about 18mm wide, but that can differ with different thicknesses of foam, so always take your own measurements to be safe. Now cut out pieces 9 and 12 in 2mm foam to assemble the left and right side plates for the crest. Here I'm gluing the side plates to the crest on both sides. Now finish the side plate assembly with piece number 11. The length of this piece will differ with different thicknesses of foam as well, so cut it long and trim it off. This is a decorative inlay that I'm gluing to the side plates. I'll show you how easy all the inlays for this helmet are to make with very cheap materials in part 2 of this tutorial. Now I'm gluing piece number 10 in place at the end of the tailpiece on the crest. Again, I'm attaching another inlay to the tailpiece. To finish that off, I'll place a tack right in the center. These are the last of the inlays, and I'm gluing them to the earpiece area of the headband. And I'll finish them off with a tack as well. Here I'm getting ready to attach the crest to the helmet. Measure about 60 millimeters from the top of the headband for the placement of the crest. Hold the crest in place and trace some lines to indicate where your glue goes. Apply glue to both surfaces and wait for the glue to become dry to the touch. Now carefully glue it into place, making sure to keep it straight at all times. Now it's time to start with the finishing part of the build. Take your time and fill all the cracks and crevices with some good caulking. I like to use a product called KWIK-SEAL. Keep your fingers wet with water to get the best results while smoothing it out. Make sure to take some time with the trim on the helmet. This is important to get that molded metal look. I sprayed the whole helmet with black PLASTI dip to seal the foam, and I let it dry overnight. When applying a color coat to your project, it is really up to the individual to choose a technique they like. I like a product called Rub and Buff. For anyone unfamiliar with the product, it's a gilding wax with metal flakes in it that gives you that real metal look. After I finish with the Rub and Buff, I dry brush the helmet with some watered down black acrylic paint, being sure to get into all the cracks and crevices to give it that aged look. Make sure to wipe off all excess paint and just allow the paint in the cracks and crevices to remain. Then I use the green patina acrylic paint in the crevices just to give it that aged brass look. Thanks for joining me for part 1 of how to make your own Spartan helmet out of EVA foam. And make sure you join me for part 2 of this tutorial for more tips and tricks on how to make your Spartan helmet look even more realistic. Check out the description below for information on how to buy the pattern for this helmet. We'll see you in the next tutorial.